Hi, I'm Dr. Stacia Alexander, your host of Goals Don't Have Feelings and America's #1 success therapist. Thank you for joining me tonight. I get the privilege of bringing some special topics again, but this time we're focusing on May as Mental Health Month. We're going to talk about different subject matters that I think people need to understand the correlation between this particular subject and mental health. Just really trying to bring it all in together to remove the stigma of mental health. If you don't already know, I've been a counselor for 20 years, been in private practice. And then about 18 months ago, I joined an HBCU in Dallas to run their mental health clinic and help spread the news of good mental health practices and provide some counseling services to the students on campus. So between those two, I have quite a bit of involvement with community mental health care and mental health advocacy. I'm also the author of the Balancing Act Family Guide. I wrote that alongside my husband and our adult children. And part of what we talk about in that book is connections. So it will totally align with my guest for tonight. If you haven't already, I ask you please to like, share, and comment on this post so that it will share the message with other people in your community about the importance of mental health, us talking about mental health, as well as the emotionality of success. And why do I talk about the emotionality of success? One, because people tend to equate mental health with people that are having problems, or people that are not functioning properly, or that are severely impaired. But what I found after 20 years of being in this business is that there is a level of emotionality that correlated with our success. And it's not always easy to set those goals, come up with a plan, sustain that plan, and then move forward in your journey. So if we talk about it on more than just the highly dysfunctional phase of mental health, I think people will embrace it more and use these services as a preventive tool. So while I'm not your therapist, I do have quite a bit of information to share with you that may highlight why mental health advocacy is so important. So tonight's guest is a wonderful lady who wrote a book. She'll be on in just a second. Her name is Charryse Johnson. When she comes on, maybe bring the kids in, help them see what the research shows about their level of social media usage and how it relates to their mental health overall. And as parents, let's say, if you're finished raising your kids, definitely share it with somebody who's in the thick of raising their kids. Grandparents, share it with your children and your grandchildren, and then community leaders and teachers, make sure that you share it with other people, because we do need to talk about this more openly and really chip away at those things that are impairing or are affecting the mental health of our children. So stay tuned while we, make this transition. Make sure you like, share, comment, host a watch party, tag me if you want to. I love engaging in a discussion, and then we'll get through this conversation. And on the other side of it, we'll have some dynamic information to equip parents with having a healthier environment at home. Thank you for joining us for this evening for the recording of Goals Don't Have Feelings. It's always great to talk with people in the Metroplex and in the state who are doing great things. And for this month, the month of May, which is Mental Health Month, I told you all how much I like to celebrate the month of May, but I'm doing another series where we're talking about different components of emotionality and bringing in other providers, other professionals who understand the connection between other areas of life and mental health. And so this evening, I have the opportunity to interview Ms. Charryse Johnson. She is the founder and owner of Power Up Parents and the author, correct,
right,
of a guide to social media era parenting, reclaiming and redefining your role for maximum student success. Welcome to the show, Charryse. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me today.
Excellent. I think it's a privilege on my end to have you, because when I started researching just how much of an impact social media has on mental health, I was like, this is the perfect book for us to bring it all in and tie it together. What do you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially right now, dealing with this pandemic, dealing with kids at home, dealing with just the class of 2020, they're like not having their regular normal graduation. So it's just, everything has changed. Everything has been altered. And so this is the perfect time for everybody to just kind of re-up on dealing with their mental health, what that looks like, and also connecting with teachers and students and all that good stuff.
I agree with you totally. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got to the point of writing this book and what you were doing before you became the author?
Okay. All right. Well, before I became an author, I was actually an educator. I taught in school. I've taught pre-K through all the way up to second grade ESL. It was truly a pleasure, but I always felt like I was superwoman working in a classroom. I felt like it was more for me to be doing. I knew I was making an impact in the classroom, but I know I also needed to make a greater impact in my community. And so I just asked the Lord to give me the vision, what it is that he wants me to do and to make it plain. And so he did that. And then here we go with Power Up Parent and a guide to social media era parenting.
And it's great. I mean, it is something that we need, especially like you were mentioning. Right now, we're in a pandemic, so you have more students who are at home. Right. You have their parents who are at home working and need to keep their children occupied. So it is perfect. Are you seeing a rise in usage of the book and your services now that the students are at home?
Absolutely. People are reaching out and wondering, okay, what do I do from here? And what is this supposed to look like? Because the book itself is all about, I have a chapter in it about building relationships between teachers, parents, and students. And so it's like now the relationship has shifted because the primary teacher, so parents thought was the actual educator in the school. But as a parent, we've always been a primary educator. So now we're just, once again, reclaiming our role. And so they're just like, okay, so what is that supposed to look like now? We're supposed to either be like the teacher's aide if you're doing remote learning, or if you're doing it more where it's strictly where you're just getting emails and you're actually supposed to be providing the teaching, then that's a different type of role as well. So just what does that look like? And how is that going to affect us towards the end once it's time to end off and go into the summer?
That makes sense. And I'm really processing what you're saying is that when parents have to take this drastic shift in responsibility, not that they weren't responsible for their children before, but now they're taking on an added responsibility. What is that doing for the dynamics of the relationships? And then how is that crossing over to the social media presence? Absolutely. So, you know, like I mentioned at the beginning of our interview, there's plenty of research that says there's some type of correlation between social media usage and mental health problems in our teenagers and young adults. Have you come across that as well in your research?
Absolutely. Social media has been one of the biggest reasons why a lot of our students and young people are dealing with depression and anxiety, feeling lonely, not having a good self-image. These things they're dealing with now because they are scrolling. 91% of young people have cell phones, they have smartphones, as well as parents, and they're using them daily. And they're taking up quite a bit of time to use them. I mean, statistics show parents spend 9 hours on a smartphone, right? The parents do. Now, how many hours do you think the students spend on there? Do you think it's more or less?
Okay, now or before they were out of school?
Great question. But now that they are out of school is actually probably more than what the statistics show, because that hasn't actually been rated yet, right? But before they got out of school.
Hopefully no more than 4 or 5.
Okay, well, actually a little bit more than that. Statistics show it's a mirror image of what their parents are doing. So
really, and they're supposed to be in school and getting more sleep.
Right. So if they're a mirror image of what we're doing, then whatever we're doing is reflecting upon them. And so we have to be aware of what we're doing as well as what they're doing. Now, of course, those numbers get lower as the age gets younger, because in between 0 to 8, it's about 30 to 45 minutes. But of course, we also know that could also be increased as well, because right now, some parents are using it as a babysitter, which, once again, not judging anybody. At the end of the day, you have to make it through this pandemic. You have to make it through working and keeping food on the table. You have to do what you have to do in order to survive.
I know, because I'm like you, I'm very sensitive to the construct of judging people, but can we at least say there are some other things that you can do as parents besides give your child over to social media when you have so many other things going on over here? Is that fair to say?
Definitely fair to say, as well as it's fair to say to create a schedule. You don't want to just have it haphazard and this is what you're going to do indefinitely. And I don't check on you or anything like that. Let's put a schedule to it, and let's have some dynamics to it, and let's have some intention to it. So we're going to intentionally use about 30 minutes dealing with educational piece, and we may look at some YouTube videos, some National Geographic, dealing with some of that nature, whatever element that your kid is struggling in, try to find something that can help support that via social media. Then they can also have a certain amount of time to be able to socialize with their friends, be able to connect. Because even though we're isolated, we don't have to be socially isolated, right? So we want to make sure that they're making those connections with their friends. And so we want to reach out to those parents of those friends and try to create something fun for them to do. They could do their own type of karaoke, because you hear about the parents doing their virtual social time. You have to create kids too.
And, you know, and I talked about that a couple of weeks ago, where I was telling parents, like, we're talking to you about how you're emotionally coping with this pandemic, but don't forget about your kids. Like in the beginning, in the beginning, it was like a snow day. Like, okay, this is fun. We're out of school. But now they're experiencing some negative responses and emotions to actually being on quarantine for months. And basically, we're going into the next month. What do you think?
Right, absolutely. You know, things got real quick, right? So if, okay, well, it's comfortable. We're just going to go, you know, get some popcorn. We'll watch movies. Well, what do you do after all these movies run out? You know, and what do you do after all the food run out? So it's time to buy some more, and it's time to start, the first of the month come up, and it's time to start paying some more bills again, and things get really real. So it's just time to just say, okay, let's make this schedule. Let's figure this thing out. You know, I understand you may have a bad day, you may have a breakdown or some of that nature, but at the end of the day, we are responsible for our children. So we have to pull up our pants and get it going and do what we got to do, because we have to be a good reflection, a good model for them. So if they see us getting stuck, then they'll get stuck. Okay. So it's not saying that you can't have a bad day, that you can't have a sad day, but it is saying you do have to move through it. You can't stay there.
Right. And do you talk about that in the book, like giving the parents some tips on what they can do with their kids besides 9 hours of social media?
And it's basically educating yourself.
Okay.
Empowering your child.
Okay.
And monitoring. So
educate, empower, and monitor.
Yeah, you want to educate yourself on what your kids like to do. So like, I know I've been doing the different TikToks, you know, and I am too. I'm trying to figure out how to do the dance, right? But at the same time, there's also some parts of it where it may not be as healthy mentally for your children to be looking at. And you want to explore that with them and talk with them about some of those things, and try to help them to avoid and prevent some different issues. Because at the end of the day, I know a lot of people don't want to talk about it, but our kids do commit suicide, unfortunately. Our kids do experience a lot of deep depression, and we want to make sure that we address that, prevent that as best as we can as parents. And it's important to do that nowadays, especially.
And that's one of the reasons why I really wanted you on, because I wonder if parents understood the correlation between social media usage and the rise in mental health problems, would they intentionally make different decisions?
Right. Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah, and it's important to notice that, because if you notice your child, which of course they're going to be doing now, but to a further extent, if they're spending more time alone, not wanting to eat, if their eating habits have changed and different things of that nature, and if you do bring up to them, hey, you want to call and talk to your friend or FaceTime your friend, and they choose not to when normally they probably would have, these are things you pay attention to and say, okay, let's go and let's have a family talk. Let's see what's going on here. Let's see how I can help you move through this pandemic, move through this situation. You could be watching an excessive amount of news. You could be being inundated, and they notice that, you know, from you. So being aware of yourself and what you're doing, it may be having an impact upon your child, and then also whatever they're doing alone is having an impact on them as well. So
okay, so what I like to do is just give you a couple of words or phrases and just give us some information on how much of an impact you think it has on a child's well-being or a young adult in terms of their emotional functioning, if you will.
Okay.
The first word is internet game sharing. How much of an impact do you think that has on their socialization and emotional regulation?
Absolutely has a great impact. And at the end of the day, you want to make sure that you're aware of who they're connecting with, doing these different shares and what that looks like, because you want to create an environment for them. Right now it's wide open. So depending on the age group, you want to make sure that you're connecting them with their friends that they know, that they're familiar with. And then also watching some of their language of these, quote unquote friends. Make sure it aligns with what you accept in your home. These are things that I learned on my own as well as a parent. Okay. I'm a mother of 4 sons. And so somehow I got a part of a middle school chat, a text chat line, right? My son gets some of his friends and some of their associates. And boy, when I tell you, I heard some stuff through that chat.
It's mind blowing. It's mind blowing.
Okay, and I said, wow. I said, where are these moms? I'm like, whose mom is this? Who is this? Or what have you? Whose child is this? And so just monitoring different things. I said, they got the right one today on this chat. So it's just being able to monitor it and understand it, and then having conversations with your child and saying, okay, let's take a look at this. Now, if it was them having this kind of talk and conversation, they address that, but just address it as in, because we can't protect our kids from everything, right? So we want to talk through and how to handle different situations. Right. And so it's a matter of talking them through. It's not chastising them. It's just talking them through it and saying, okay, you recognize this for what it is. Now, what do you do in the next case when you see this or you hear this from somebody that's your friend?
What about the video chatting? Like, there's even rooms now, and I just learned about this one last week. I can't even recall the name, but you actually set up on live, and people can go from room to room and decide if they want to hang out with you in your live room or if they want to go to the next room. It's almost like speed dating for social media. Right. Have you heard of that?
Well, of course, I don't participate in that, but I do a lot of things for research, right? So, dealing with that, a lot of that is going on right now because single people, remember, if they're at home, isolated, they need that connection, right? They're looking to date and things of that nature. So,
so that's what I'm saying in terms of like, do you think that that's mentally exhausting just to be exposed to so many people? Like, that's just, you can hop from room to room to room. That's what I was thinking about, is that that's why they get so bored with just sitting in front of somebody having a decent conversation, because they're accustomed to switching rooms or conversations at the drop of a hat.
Right. Well, of course, our normal way of communicating is face to face, right? And so we're to having nonverbal cues and recognizing those, but now this is completely unnatural, right? We're on Zoom every day working, just like the chat rooms or what have you in the virtual rooms, and we're dealing with our coworkers, we're dealing with our classmates, and we're on a different face-to-face where we don't move, and we're trying to make sure that our background looks decent, that people don't see everything going on that normally happens behind us, and making sure, our hair is on right and straight, I gotta make sure my head is on good, because this is all they see, right? You don't get a chance to take a break. You don't get a chance to look off and those normal things that we would normally do. It's mentally exhausting. It creates a different type of fatigue. And so with the Zoom, it creates what's called a Zoom fatigue, where you're constantly having to be responsive. And when you're constantly mentally having to be responsive, it creates a whole nother dynamic that we're dealing with now.
Okay. And remember when I was mentioning the statistic of the correlation between a rise in mental health problems and the, let me repeat that. So remember I was mentioning the statistical correlation between social media rise and mental health rise in children and adolescents. Do you think that also has to do with the level of harassment that occurs when you're on social media platforms?
Well, that's the thing now. There's been a rise more of dealing with like the social media aspect, of course, but like our children had a lot to do dealing with cyberbullying before now, right? And so now cyberbullying is not as high as it used to be, okay? And that's strictly because there was also a correlation between bullying at school, physical bullying, and then getting home and then getting that continual harassment. As well from those same people that were bullying you, and then their friends jump in and those type of things and get online and then bullying there as well. So that's one good aspect I can say for our kids. They don't have to deal with that as much, which is a blessing. You know, it's always a blessing in something, and so that's definitely a blessing. And but it's other things now that they have to deal with. There's a rise in predatory behavior, and so that's something that we have to be more heightened as parents, is being aware of the predatory behavior on Snapchat, on TikTok. TikTok just recently this week got a settlement that had to go out for allegedly taking in information from children under 13 years old, a $5.7 million settlement, because they are collecting data. They're collecting data about their age, their location, and what can they do with that, okay? You remember, actually, in my book, I talk about the Musical.ly, and that was the platform that TikTok purchased. And so they just continued on, and they actually were having lots of allegations against them dealing with children and predators, and how they were easily able to connect with young people and creating meetups and luring them and things of that nature. So these are things that we really have to be aware of as parents, because it affects the health and well-being of our young people. And that's one of the most important things.
That is, that's man, that's I mean, that's like, to put it all into perspective. And I hope parents are listening and paying attention to this, because you get the chance to make decisions. You get the chance to make some changes in how you do your parenting. I know for us, when our kids were growing up, they had 30 minutes of electronic time a day. And it was up to them how they wanted to use it. Either they could watch TV for 30 minutes, they could get on their phones for 30 minutes, or they could talk on the phone for 30 minutes or whatever. But it didn't matter what you did with the 30 minutes, you only got 30 minutes a day. And of course, that resulted in us having to do far more in the evenings after school than we would have had we allowed them unlimited time on their electronics. But I think it was worth it. And I'll tell you why as well. Every year I do an annual workshop called August Accountability. And in that workshop, we focus on 4 areas of life in terms of how we have how we handle our accountability, so that we can have high levels of peace. And it's relationships, professional, self-care, and spiritual. So in the relationship quadrant, can you kind of talk to how our social media usage impacts our relationships with other people in the home and other people in our communities?
Okay, definitely. Well, just going back to the fact that as parents, statistics show that we use our social media at least 9 hours, as well as our kids use theirs 9 hours as well. Well, and that 9 hours isn't including homework. Well, what are we doing when it comes to connecting? Are we connecting on via social media? 9 times out of 10, we're not, right? So we need to make sure that we are cutting back on some of this time after we find out this information, and then coming up with some new ideas, because just because we and by this time, you know, of course, the different states are starting to open up slowly and things of that nature, right? But we also need to be aware that, hey, we still need to be intentional, because the schools aren't opening back up right now.
Right.
Opening back up until next school year. So what is that supposed to look like from here on out? Well, we need to be planning, since the parks are opening up, taking those safety precautions, getting some vitamin D, getting some fresh air, going to the park, you know, doing some different types of things. Then also maybe having a paint day outside in the backyard. But being creative, there are so many different wonderful things on social media, on Pinterest and other great suggestions out there that we can come up with to do right in our home and create a different type of space.
That's
and build those,
build those relationships up. That's what we have to really focus on, because you don't get a chance to do it again. You only get to raise them one time. Right.
Only 18, they say only 18 summers and only 18 falls with our kids, and then it's time to go, right? And that's perspective. It's like, man, that's gonna be quick, you know?
That's true. So that's some excellent information. Please share the name of the book again and how they can locate you.
Okay. The book is called A Guide to Social Media Era Parenting. And once again, you can find it on Amazon.com, as well as you can reach us for a hard copy at powerupparent@gmail.com. We have a Facebook page at Power Up Parent. as well as a Guide to Social Media Era Parenting Facebook page, as well as we're on Twitter and on Instagram. We would love to connect with you.
Excellent. Thank you for coming on. This is exciting. Well, you know me, I get excited about all things mental health, but it is interesting to actually talk through how social media impacts mental health and not to discount how much of an impact it has on our children. Absolutely. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing it. I think it's going to be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, especially when you just think about, why do our teens go online anyway? Like, what are they looking for? Right. So, you know, they're looking for like different connections, different things of that nature. But at the end of the day, what they're looking for is self-esteem. You know, they're looking for confidence, building their confidence. They're looking for a sense of belonging. They're looking for, of course, entertainment. And then they're also looking for popularity and to express themselves. So all of these things they're looking for via social media. So as a parent, from my book, and I expressed, you know, all of that list as well, then now it's up to you to say, okay, they're looking for that outside of the home via social media. What can I do to help them in those areas as a parent? And so that's where the power comes in. Like I said, you want to use those 3 steps: educate yourself, and then empower your children, and then monitor and do the best you can. You got it. You got everything that you need inside of you as a parent.
That's great. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
That was great information. Just as I expected, she was able to tie the 2 together, social media and mental health. You guys, don't sit on this. Don't pack this away and not ever look at it again. Go out and purchase her book, because just like you heard her, she gave you some tips, and there's more tips in the book that you can use. I definitely will refer it to the parents that I have in family counseling to help them understand how much of an impact social media usage has on the mental health of their children, and how they can do some things now to help curb that impact. You guys have been great. I appreciate you joining me. Make sure you follow Charryse Johnson on her social media sites so that you can keep up with the research that she has and the information that she has, and maybe even some more tips. And after you do that, go to my social media pages, like, share, and comment, and we can engage and continue this conversation as much as possible. And tune in for the next episode. We're having a great time talking about all of these ways that mental health is impacted and how it is directly related to other areas of our lives. You guys have been great. I'm Dr. Stacia Alexander, America's #1 success therapist, for another episode of Goals Don't Have Feelings. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Thank you. No. Hi, everybody. It's a great day. It is. It's a great month. It is. It is May, and it is one of the most beautiful months of the year. Why? Well, let's just count off the things. May is my birthday month. May is Mother's Day. And number 3, May is Mental Health Month. So yes, I'm going to be so fabulously busy this month. Won't be going too much of anywhere, but I will be busy. May is always like that for me. But this year, this May in 2020, I turned 50 years old. So you best believe you're going to see a lot of video footage and a lot of pictures and a lot of celebrations coming on for the month of May, because all of these fabulous things are happening. So make sure you stay tuned to the itinerary for this month. I have a very special guest coming on my birthday, May 7th at 7:00 p.m. The co-hosts Nisha and Tasha are going to join me for a celebratory episode. It is the best day of the year, May 7th, and I have a special guest. So you have to stay tuned. Keep on the lookout for that guest. It's going to be great. And then this month, for Mother's Day, of course, we want to highlight our mothers. If you don't know, my mom lives with me, which is great. My grandmother, this will be my first Mother's Day without her, but I will truly embrace the memories that I have of her and how many ways she impacted me, considering, that she just left this year. So there you go with that. But the other thing that I'll do in May is a couple of more episodes about the ways that other areas of our lives, like parenting and mental health, traveling and mental health, music and mental health, like these other things that we think about, and we don't necessarily think about our mental health when we talk about them. But of course, I'm going to highlight that and bring it to you so that we can talk about it a little more, and you will be more intentional about those areas of your lives. So as always, stay tuned for the itinerary. I'll keep it coming, keep it coming, keep it coming. And if you will do so pleasantly, like, share, comment, and host a watch party when you see my videos come up on the screen. If you do that, I'll be forever grateful. And thank you. Happy birthday to me. Happy Mother's Day to me. Happy Mental Health Month to me. Y'all take it easy. Bye-bye.